Provocação Histórica.
Olá, olá, olê, 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 olá. Está começando, vocês sabem, mais um Provocação Histórica ao vivo pelos canais do Instituto Conhecimento Liberta em todas as plataformas pós-pandêmicas e virtuais desse nosso mundo invariavelmente, infelizmente, cheio de guerras. Está começando mais um Provocação Histórica ao vivo pelos canais do Edu Moreira, também em todas as plataformas pós-pandêmicas e virtuais desse nosso mundo não tão admirável assim, ou muito admirável, a depender das prosas críticas que o Provocação Histórica traz aqui para vocês semanalmente. Senhoras e senhores jovens do Brasil, essa altura vocês já sabem, eu sou o Lindener Pareto, um professor de história e um historiador num Brasil e num mundo que tem um intenso, virulento e violento passado pela frente. E a gente aqui no Provocação Histórica costuma dizer que narra o passado para expurgar os demônios autoritários do presente. E é por isso que eu peço a vocês para curtirem, compartilharem e fazerem viajar a crítica histórica. Vocês estão vendo hoje aqui, sem mais delongas, que a gente está num cenário absolutamente um tanto diferente, digamos assim. É porque esse Provocação Histórica de hoje e os próximos serão absolutamente especiais, uma vez que estamos na Flipei, que é a festa literária pirata das editoras independentes, que pela primeira vez, depois de muitos anos em Paraty, vem parar aqui na sua pirataria, aqui no centro da Paulicéia Desvairada, em São Paulo, num fim de semana impressionante, com feira de livro, debates com grandes questões políticas do tempo presente, envolvendo nomes da nossa história, filosofia, da nossa política. E o Provocação Histórica tem a alegria, então, de poder ser feito aqui direto dos estúdios da Central. Um estúdio aqui onde a própria Elza Soares, por exemplo, gravou A Mulher do Fim do Mundo, um disco clássico já do nosso cancioneiro, digamos assim, popular. E hoje o Provocação Histórica tem a alegria também, direto da Flipei, de conversar com duas figuras que eu admiro muito. Uma mais de perto, porque já a conheço há algum tempo, e vocês do ICL também, que é a nossa intrépida jornalista de uma experiência impressionante no Brasil e no mundo, Heloísa Vilela, que está aqui conosco já, a quem eu agradeço muitíssimo por ter topado fazer essa prosa aqui. A Elo, que é uma das vozes no jornalismo mais contundentes ao narrar aquilo que tem sido cometido por um Estado que a gente pode definir como crimes contra a humanidade. E se tem uma pessoa que eu conheço e que não só fica indignada, mas sofre junto, denuncia, narra para que isso vibre de uma outra forma e sensibilize o mundo, essa pessoa é Elo Vilela. E junto com ela aqui a gente vai conduzir uma prosa impressionante com o jornalista, com o escritor, com o ativista Mohammed Omer. Mr. Omer, welcome to ICL and Historical Provocation, and very welcome to São Paulo in Brazil. Thank you for being here with us. My English is a little rusty, so Heloísa Vilela is going to translate my questions, as you know. And thank you for being here. I'm going to read a little text to you. Sir Omer, thank you very much for coming here to Historical Provocation and ICL. Very welcome to São Paulo in Brazil. Thank you for your strong texts and work and struggle against barbarism, courageously denouncing crimes against humanity, as I said. In many ways, historically, the Palestinians' struggle for dignity and freedom is very close to the struggles of the Brazilian people, especially Afro-Brazilians and indigenous people, as you know. So I want to thank you for the courage of the truth. I want to show our solidarity with all the Palestinian people and say that your grief, their grief, is also our grief. Now I present to you Heloísa Vilela. Please, Elo, guide us in this great journey today. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to repeat his words. Our true, deep solidarity with the people of Palestine. I could not agree more with Lindener, and it's from the bottom of my heart. I'd like to start this conversation from your book, Estado de Choque. Okay, this is an excellent title because I think that's what the whole world should be now, in state of shock with what's happening in Gaza, with this genocide that is being perpetrated by the fascist, colonialist state of Israel. But besides of that, which is a almost like a diary of what you went through while you were in Gaza, you also wrote another book that is about to come out that is sort of like the opposite of what this book is. So I was wondering if you could start telling us how can you put out to get those two books so different in this short period of time?
Thank you so much for having me. When I started to write the book, the first book, I started really to look at, the impact of the war and the conflict in broader context on the Palestinian population, mainly in the Gaza Strip. But then I see the narrative of the media is focused only on the Palestinians as either terrorist or passive,
spectators.
Yes, exactly. In this case, I wanted really to create a narrative that is really humanizing the Palestinian struggle and looking at what are the pleasures of the life in the Gaza Strip before October 23. I really started to look at, what are the little pleasures, whether people going to the beach or museums or people having atmospheres, of family and connection, even though the borders are locked, but there are little pleasures that we try to look at, and I try to focus only on these aspects of life. And this is missing. But also it's very important to highlight this because, I don't want the Palestinians to be perceived as only victims or heroes. They are human beings after all. And we wanted to focus on the Palestinian lives and to show the life that really matters. And like anywhere else, you have mothers and fathers, you have family members, you have people that have dreams and aspirations, and you wanted to connect these people to the world, and you want to bring something meaningful and impactful, not necessarily always, that war and the bloodshedding and conflict and missiles and ambulances and tank shells and closures of the Rafah crossing and not allowing patients to get outside. Can we focus on something that's more meaningful? And to my fortune, I was able to capture some of these important moments, and I put them in a book which is called On the Pleasures of Living in Gaza. That's a book that probably you don't hear much often of the two words merged together, pleasures and Gaza, but they were there. It's also a call, in my view. Such a book should be unifying the Palestinians and also creating the hope for the rest of the world that Palestinians can go back to some normality, but this normality will require that Palestine becomes free and we end the Israeli occupation sooner than later.
Once and for all.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if, as this program talks about history, and you pretty much captured a piece of history in this book, I was wondering if you have any idea or any view of what might happen now after Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated inside Tehran, and he was the guy that was negotiating in Qatar the possibility of a ceasefire, of exchange of prisoners. So it's like I'm talking to you, negotiating something, I turn my back and you kill me from my back. So what can we expect after that?
This is not new. This is an old Israeli tactic, an old Israeli policy to eliminate and kill the moderate voices within the Palestinian resistance groups. If we go back in history a little bit, since the program is focusing on history, let's go back on October 2010. Ahmad al-Jabari was also a commander within Hamas that was reviewing a deal for a ceasefire or a hudna for 20 years, and Israel killed him at that particular day before he hands over the official response to the Egyptian mediator. Today we see the same situation where there is a possibility for ceasefire, and suddenly, all of a sudden, the Israeli military kill the main negotiator and leave the process in a limbo. That's just the way how the Israeli regime is acting. That's the way how the Israeli right-wing government is also responding to calls for ceasefire. I'm afraid this is going to only create more radical voices within Hamas and within the Palestinian faction groups. We are seeing this as a very drastic moment, you know, when all the world was looking for an opportunity for peace, but Israel kills the person that has got the opportunity to bring that. Now we will see what's going to come after this deal, but I'm afraid, you know, that there won't be a deal anytime soon as far as ceasefire is concerned, and that's precisely what Netanyahu wants for the time being.
I have no question, no doubt about that, that he wants, even if it's possible, to bring Iran in, to force the U.S. to be even more involved and committed to this massacre. So, changing a little bit of this subject, you talked about the importance of writing the second book to showcase the pleasures of the life in Gaza before that. And this week I saw an image that I thought was so perfect to capture the spirit of the Palestinian people. It was a little piece of land in Gaza, surrounded by destruction, but where one guy alone was cultivating some little plants and
Seeds.
Yeah, to produce food. But it's a small stretch of land and it was all green already. And I thought that was such a powerful image of what the Palestinians are trying to do all the time, trying to recreate life in the midst of all this destruction, killings, persecution, etc., etc. So where does this spirit come from?
You know, when we are killed, we are left with no options but to search for a new meaning for life. The more Israel kills, the more it destroys, the more it damages prospects of life, the more you find the new generations who wanted to create hope and life. Let me give you another example of a 15 years old boy who was talking that the international community will need at least 15 to 20 years to remove the rubble after the war in the second day. And he said, no, let's make it so easy for them. We love life so much that we are able to do this job within a few months, and we will start and rebuild Gaza again, and it's going to be better than before. That's the spirit of the Palestinians that you have in the Gaza Strip. These are the people that we should be fighting to give them hope, to give them life, to give them opportunities, to open the borders, to end the occupation, and to allow people to get in and out free. Palestinians should be free now, once and for all.
And for all. Now, in this genocide, we have seen Israel targeting specific places and people. So they made sure that they destroyed the universities, the hospitals. Even in the West Bank, they destroyed, I was there, I saw, they made sure to destroy the horse of Jenin. They destroyed the entrance, the big key that was in the entrance of the Aida camp. And so they make sure they destroyed the physical and the subjective meanings of life for the Palestinian people. So journalists, they kill more than 150 journalists by now. Just this week, they killed 2 Al Jazeera journalists. So, and you were there as a journalist reporting on this. Did you believe that you were going to get out alive while you were there?
First, you know, when I got outside from the previous war, which I reported on my book. But one of the things that really shocks me is that people, family members of journalists, mothers, fathers, siblings, and loved ones, they have to pay the price for the choice of the journalist that had made the choice to go out and tell the truth about what's going on. You talked about the journalists that have been killed, 150 or 162 today, plus over 1,000 family members that have been killed. Mu'min Ashrafi had lost 24 family members of his own family just because his choice to be a producer on a TV channel. And then later on, because there are no reporters, he became a reporter. So we are losing every day a lot of the journalists because they are at the front line telling the story that Israel does not want the world to know on the suffering. Now, if any journalist happens to be reporting, whether you are reporting for CNN or Fox News or for any outlet, you are a target. But let me be very clear. Israel also did not allow international journalists to go into the Gaza Strip precisely for this reason, because they don't want the journalists to see and report on what's going on. They also don't want to be in a situation where they have to kill international journalists, as they killed many of the international journalists and peacemakers, including Rachel Corrie, James Miller, who was killed in the southern part of the Gaza Strip in Rafah, and Tom Harandel, who was also part of the solidarity movement that came to the Gaza Strip to support the needs of the Palestinian people at the local hospital. So we are having a situation where, Israel is blocking the flow of the information that gets in and out, and that is something, that nobody is paying attention. We are only looking at numbers of journalists and their families that have been killed, and 1 day, 2 days we report on them and we move on. Mm-hmm. It's time really to stop. Journalism is not a crime. We should support journalism in all forms. The international community should stand now and tell Israel enough is enough.
We want to go there and see.
Absolutely. And we want to allow journalists, international journalists, to step into the Gaza Strip, to give a break for their colleagues who are reporting on the ground 24/7 for the last 10 months. It's time really to change this and bring the international journalists and have a situation where the world is able to see also a new perspective of what's going on the ground.
Now, the last time the Israeli government allowed journalists to come in, they took them in by the hand and they took them to Al Shifa hospital, and it was not a very good result for them. So the journalists noticed all the production of proofs that were not there, and so and the headquarters beneath the hospital that was not there. So it was not very productive for them. So I guess they keep not allowing it until the whole world says, you know what, enough. And I was wondering, how can we explain to our kids in the future, to our grandkids, the fact that this is happening and the world's not doing a thing to stop this genocide?
I think it's important really to start this from the family. Families should really start before we go to schools. Families should be starting to teach their kids about Palestine. There are Palestinian people. These are their rights. There is a foreign occupation. Israel is occupying power, and it refuses to end its occupation on these people. It's as simple as that.
Very simple.
And beyond that, there are also international courts that are calling for Israel to end the occupation, to dismantle the wall, to end the siege on the Gaza Strip, and none of that is implemented, because you have got the state of Israel that's acting above the law and is supported by the United States of America all the times.
It seems to me that it would be very fast and very simple to end this genocide. It just depended on one word coming from the White House, and that would be all over. So, and that's why I think it's very important to see the movements that we are seeing in the U.S. Against this genocide, but it has to be much bigger, and the whole world has to join their voices together to make this happen. I don't know if you have a question now, but...
I'll try in English. Maybe in that way, the difference between Kamala Harris and Biden and their relations with Trump. Do you think that there are a lot of difference between the two sides there, the Republicans, the Democrat, in relation with Israel and the genocide against Gaza?
Well, yes. Both of them are controlled by Netanyahu. That's it. That's the reality.
I always say that although people think differently nowadays, and it has been like this for many years, Israel controls the politics in the US, not the other way around, because the lobby, the Israeli lobby, pays the politicians. Otherwise, you wouldn't see Netanyahu being vaccinated in the US Congress, which is a big shame, big shame. So I think that's the only world that he can get, the only place in the world that he can get that kind of reception, you know. So yeah, I don't see any difference between any of them. Yeah,
I agree. And I was wondering about the new book, The Pleasures of Life in This Kind of Condition. And that this is very poetic, so congratulations. We are going to read and write a paper to ICL. And you just graduated in literature.
Yeah.
And you like Shakespeare and all the authors. And so how literature can help to face these terrors, you know?
You know, you will be really amazed with Gaza bombardment and war and all of that. You have people in Gaza who are studying the Victorian age literature. You have people who are expert on Shakespeare. You have people like Professor Rifat al-Arair, who was also assassinated, the professor of literature and translation. You have people that love life. You have people that really wanted to see a meaningful engagement with the world. You have people that compose songs. You have people that go into... I went to a university in Gaza where I studied English literature, and you know, you really have to do quite a good job, you know, to pass this. And some of my friends in the West, they wonder like, wow, you guys study Shakespeare, and yes, Shakespeare, Victorian age, American literature, you name it. You know, the Gaza school system is quite solid. It's very well established. You know, I went to UNRWA schools at the United Nations in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, and UNRWA is one of the best schools in the world. At this time, UNRWA is being attacked by the Israeli right-wing government, but let me be very clear, you know, we endorse the work of UNRWA. The UNRWA is doing a great work on the ground, whether in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, serving the Palestinian refugees. How else are you expecting, you know, do you expect the Palestinian refugees to just, you know, solve their issue by themselves? You know, in 1948, there was a situation where Israel comes in and forcefully displaced the Palestinians out of their homes. So they went to the region, and some went to the Gaza Strip and others to the West Bank, and there was a creation of a mechanism as part of the General Assembly of the United Nations, which is really to provide social services, education, health, rehabilitation, and general support to the refugees. And now Israel does not want this United Nations agency to deliver this important service to the Palestinian people. But I think it's time for all the international community to get together and support the presence of UNRWA, unless really we are talking about establishing a Palestinian state where the role of UNRWA won't be needed, since there will be a new state, then yes, we accept. But you know, canceling the role of UNRWA at this situation when the Palestinians are displaced, being forced to hunger, are being killed constantly, and without food, medical supplies, without the need for any social support. You know, nowadays, this morning I was reading more reports on a skin disease that is spreading across the Gaza Strip. You know, the Israeli military, they vaccinated their soldiers that are attacking Gaza, but leaving the children without much vaccination or medications. So this is a role that UNRWA should be doing, but it's not allowed to deliver services because it's being constantly attacked. And there is a reason for this. You know, Israel is not only attacking UNRWA because it wants to attack the United Nations, but it wants to attack any prospect that stop the idea, or any prospect that really challenge the idea of the right to return. UNRWA is clearly calling for the right to return of Palestinian refugees, and you know, for the right-wing government in Israel, this is not something that they wanted to see. But again, the international community should force Israel to bring UNRWA back, to deliver services, to support the people, and to support also ending the occupation and improving the ground for a two-state solution. That's the only solution we have on the ground.
That's the only solution, and I think that this genocide is as bad as it is. It's showing this very clearly. There is no way for Palestinians to live in their territory with these colonies, this Israeli colonies in there, building more and more and taking more of this. They have to get out. They have to go home, and Palestine should be free and sovereign, and that's it. There's no other way. Now, I was wondering, we have a whole generation in Gaza that grew up in a open prison, sort of speaking, and I'm wondering. I mean, you lived through this, but you're writing your books and you're trying to show different sides of life, no? And how all that impacts your production, your literary production, the way you write and how you express yourself.
And I and I add the fact you were born in the Rafah refugee camp.
Yes. Look, our experience is really shaped, or my experience as a Palestinian is shaped by exile, displacement, and occupation. I cannot change that. Any person who is my age will not have the same experience as myself. We carry so much on our back, so much luggage that is defined by a lot of oppression because of living under the Israeli occupation. So how much is that going to affect the work? Of course it affects that. It defines me. It defines the person who I am. You know, when you live under constant bombardment and you live in a place in the Gaza Strip without means to exit or without means to exchange visits, you know, with the friends and family, or without means to get the necessary things that you need to live as a human being, of course that defines the person who you are. You know, whether you are an author, a journalist, or a writer, or any profession, most of the people in the Gaza Strip went through this experience, and there is a massive trauma in the Gaza Strip. The other day I was talking to a medical doctor, and he was talking about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I say, well, there's nothing post in it, really. It's all continuous traumatic stress disorder. It's continuing because, you know, you have people that survived an airstrike just in the last 2 hours. But look, I have seen people that survive an airstrike, but then 3-4 hours later they were killed by another airstrike. So this is a continuous. Think about the impact this has on the children, on the women, on the elderly people. And people are living now in tents. They are not allowed to have the access to food, medication. There is shortages of everything. There is no education. You know, for the 10th month now, the Palestinians are deprived of their right to education. Like you said, you know, not only schools have been blown up and targeted, but also educational facilities and universities have been bombed. And this is something that affects the mental and well-being of people. What is going to happen next? Everybody's wondering, are we going to wait for, you know, 1 year, 2 years? People were saying, okay, this war is going to be like 1 week, 2 weeks, and it's going to be over, and we are going to go back to our schools. But now we are in the 10th month, and it doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon.
So what do you expect us to do? Me, him, people in Brazil, everybody else?
Journalists, historians, workers.
I would start really with advocacy. Advocacy is really important to support the Palestinians and to give advocacy and solidarity with the Palestinians. That's the first thing that we need. We need people to push the government to allow medical aid and humanitarian aid to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, to end the brutal killing and mass destruction of the Gaza Strip now, and to end the occupation. This is something that really important and really matters, you know, to end the occupation so that, you know, people can have a life. It cannot continue like this for years and years. We have, you know, it's a very poor equation where you have a powerful state supported by the major Western allies, and the United States, and you have the Palestinians not supporting by any, you know. You have armed resistant groups on the ground, but that's a very fraction, and for the rest of it, it's just like shooting in a barrel. Are we going to allow this to continue? So my call to the people of Brazil, intellectuals, journalists, engineers, authors, is really to show solidarity with the people of Palestine, make sure that we are unified under one call to have a ceasefire now, to allow humanitarian and unhindered access to humanitarian support and food trucks to be allowed and medication to be allowed into the Gaza Strip. That's very important. And the end of occupation. You know, we cannot continue to live in a situation like that for another 20 years. People are exhausted.
Not even 2 months. I mean, not
Exactly.
about 20 years,
One
not even
day.
2 months. I think that's the benchmark for humanity. If we don't do that, who are we as human beings? No?
That's the greatest struggle of our lives right now. So our time is ending right now. I'd like to thank you again for being here with us, speaking about that, and we admire your struggle, and our hearts are with you and your people. Gostaria de agradecer a Elo Vilela por ter não só abrilhantado aqui o Provocação Histórica. A sua sensibilidade sempre me inspira, você sabe disso, há tempos. E é uma alegria poder sentar aqui junto com você, with you, and share this moment with Mohammed Omer. So, thank you. Pessoal, conheçam os cursos livres, documentários e o ICL, que é quem permite aqui a gente poder juntar Mohammed Omer e Heloísa Vilela numa Provocação Histórica como esse. Queria agradecer a toda a organização da Flipei. Eu não vou dizer nomes aqui, senão vou esquecer vários, mas thank you, muito obrigado a Flipei. Obrigado ao time ICL que está aqui conosco. Um beijo no coração de vocês e um beijo no nosso grande público. So, say goodbye to our great public, my friends.
From the river to the sea.
We have no option but really to end the occupation and to have a dignified life for all Palestinians, so that, you know, that we can all focus on a positive future. And, you know, the decision in the future should be for the Palestinians, only the Palestinians, to decide for themselves and the future they want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Você pode ir para qualquer país e fazer qualquer tipo de documentário.
Cheguei a Havana, Fidel me chamou no gabinete dele e se virou e falou assim: o que você quer me perguntar?
Essas são imagens inéditas e históricas.
Disputar la subjetividad, comprender que las relaciones pueden ser realmente distintas.
Siempre se habla de los que se van de Cuba, pero no se habla de la mayoría, que son los que se quedan viviendo en Cuba.
Porque nosotros tenemos una cultura de la resistencia y de la emancipación, pero hemos generado una cultura de la solidaridad.
¡Patria o muerte!
El verdadero revolucionario tiene que tener una gran capacidad para amar, porque si no tienes esa capacidad para amar, tú no puedes entregar tu vida a una causa.
Un 30% de las medidas que Estados Unidos impone a Cuba se le impone a cualquier país latinoamericano y no hay gobierno que aguante.
Entrevista com o presidente de Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel.
Quítenme el bloqueo a ver qué pasa.